The girl in the mirror room. There was a house in Tarlac that no one talked about, not because it was forgotten, but because remembering it made people uneasy. It stood at the end of a long, narrow road, lined with dried mango, trees, their branches twisted like hands reaching for something they could never hold. The house was built during the Spanish era, stone on the bottom, bamboo and wood on the second floor, wide stairs, a veranda that used to hold flower pots, now crumbling. It was owned by the Zamora family, once proud, once wealthy, now only mentioned in whispers. People said they were cursed. One by one, each member of the family died unnaturally and quickly, as if something was counting them down, the last to live. There was a young girl named Lucia. She was quiet, always carried a small mirror around, never smiled, never ran with the other children. Locals saw her sitting by the window, brushing her long black hair, speaking to someone no one else could see. Some said she was strange, others said she was haunted. She never left the house when her parents died. They said it was illness, but no one knew for sure. No doctor ever came, only a priest who stayed only 10 minutes and left without blessing anything. Lucia remained alone in the house. No relatives came, no one visited, yet the lights in her room stayed on, and her mirror always faced the window like it needed to watch something. One day, she disappeared. Her neighbor, an old woman who sold dried fish, said she saw her standing in the garden that morning, barefoot in her white nightdress, staring into the well behind the house. She blinked, and Lucia was gone. They searched the house and found nothing, only the mirror on her bed, cracked and cold. Since then, no one dared enter, but the mirror remained. Years later, the land was sold to a Manila businessman named Tomas. He bought the house cheap, said he wanted to restore it, make a quiet vacation home out of the ruins. He didn't believe in ghosts or curses. He brought his wife and his teenage daughter Clara, who hated the idea of leaving the city, but followed anyway out of respect. The family arrived in June. They cleaned the house room by room, laughing at the webs, the creaks, the lizards that lived in every corner. Only one room remained, locked, the mirror room they called it, that because it had no furniture, only one object standing in the center of the wall, a tall wooden mirror, almost 7 feet high, with carvings that looked like vines turning into faces. The door wouldn't budge. Clara was the first to notice that whenever she passed the door, she felt a cool breeze. Though there were no windows at night, she heard something inside, a low sound like someone whispering to themselves over and over. But she couldn't make out the words. Her father said it was old wood shifting. Her mother said maybe rats. But Clara began to dream of a girl standing behind her, brushing her hair with long, slow strokes, never stopping, never blinking. In the dream, Clara stood frozen, unable to speak, only watching as the girl raised her mirror and whispered Clara's name. One afternoon, while exploring, Clara found a brass key hidden beneath a loose tile in the kitchen. She didn't tell her parents. She waited until they were asleep, took a flashlight, and approached the mirror room. The door unlocked easily, as if the house had been waiting for her. The room was dark, dust floated like smoke, the floorboards groaned beneath her feet. The mirror stood exactly as she'd seen it in her dreams, but taller, more alive. The carvings around it shimmered like wet leaves. She walked up to it. Her reflection smiled before she did. She stepped back. The girl in the mirror kept smiling. Then Clara blinked. The reflection didn't. Her heart pounded. She dropped the flashlight and ran out, slamming the door behind her. The next day, she told her father. He laughed, said mirrors play tricks, nothing more. He went to the room himself, unlocked it, walked in, looked at the mirror, and said it was fine, just dusty, just wood and glass. Clara knew he was wrong. The reflection wasn't his. She saw it from the hallway. The man inside the mirror had no eyes, just black holes. Where light was swallowed. Over the next few days, Clara stopped sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the girl from the mirror room standing closer, always brushing her hair, always whispering words. Clara could almost understand. She started hearing them while awake, in the walls, in the sink, in the space between the click of the light switch and the hum of the fan. She wrote the words down without knowing. The notebook beside her bed filled with phrases she didn't remember writing. Bring her back, the mirror waits. You are her. One night Clara caught her reflection brushing its hair while her hands stayed still. She screamed. The mirror cracked again, only this time not the one in the room, the one in her own bedroom. Clara begged her parents to leave. She said the house felt wrong, but her mother brushed her hair gently and told her she was tired and scared from the move. Her father said city kids always imagine ghosts when they hear wind and smell old wood, but that night Clara didn't sleep in her bed. She sat on the floor, eyes on the mirror at the end of the hallway, not the mirror in the room, the hallway one. It was small, used for checking yourself before going out. She stared at it because she had to, because her name wasn't hers anymore. She had gone to brush her teeth when she saw the word scratched faintly into the glass. Lucia, not written with ink, not drawn with dust, but carved into the surface, as if something sharp had dragged across it from the inside. She ran to her room, shut the door, but the reflection followed her in her mirror wasn't showing her anymore. It was showing a girl in a white dress, holding the brass key, smiling. Clara tore the mirror off the wall, but the image stayed now. It was inside the wall itself. Her mother began to change. She stopped talking much, stayed in her room longer and longer, and started humming old Spanish lullabies. She never spoke Spanish. Her father kept fixing broken things that weren't broken. He tore the tiles in the kitchen, lifted floorboards in the hallway, opened and closed doors as if searching for something he couldn't name. Clara woke up to the scent of lavender filling her room, not from a candle, not from a bottle, but from the air itself. It was the same scent that came from the mirror room. She knew because she had gone back. She had to see if Lucia was real. She brought salt. She brought a Bible. She whispered a prayer. She stepped in and saw herself already there, standing before the mirror, smiling, holding the comb. Her mouth moved. I missed you, Clara. You forgot what it's like to be me. The marks started on her arm, tiny scratches that didn't bleed, didn't sting, but didn't fade either. She covered them with her sleeves. Then they appeared on her legs, her back, her neck, like something from inside was drawing her, mapping her. The words began to form again. Lucia, Lucia, Lucia. She showed her mother, who stared blankly and said maybe it was just allergies. Her father no longer looked at her when she spoke, only past her at something behind her. One day he whispered, she's been brushing your hair at night, hasn't she? And he left the room that night. Clara locked every door, put towels under every crack, kept every light on, and still she dreamed of water, of drowning slowly inside a mirror. Her toothbrush disappeared, then her comb, then her Bible. Each night something small was missing from her room, replaced with something older, a cracked porcelain doll, a ribbon soaked in lavender, an old locket with no photo. Then her reflection stopped matching her again. It was younger, it smiled. When she cried, it blinked. When she stared motionless, she tried smashing the mirrors again, but the sound echoed with a scream from inside. Her mother had gone quiet. Her father sat outside the house all day, digging small holes around the garden with bare hands. He told Clara the roots whisper sometimes, and that he could still hear Lucia asking where her body was. One night a storm came, but it didn't hit the town, only the house. The sky above the Zamora home turned black, while the rest of the town remained dry. Rain poured through the ceilings, wind slammed against the windows, but nothing inside was wet, only the mirrors. They dripped like wounds. Clara screamed and tried to run outside, but the doorknob burned her hand. She ran to her mother, who was sitting upright, eyes wide, hair dripping. But her clothes were dry. She whispered, "It's her house. Now let her finish. Let her be whole again." Clara collapsed. She woke up in the mirror room, lying before the tall glass, her own face gone, only Lucia, now brushing her hair slowly. Clara tried to scream. Her mouth wouldn't move. She was trapped in the glass, watching as her own body rose and walked out of the room, calm and smiling, brushing its hair with the silver comb. She pounded on the inside of the mirror. The glass didn't crack, only rippled. Lucia turned back once at the doorway and said, "I only needed one of us to forget. Now y'all remember everything." And she closed the door. Clara remained, and every mirror in the house turned black. Zamora house was sold again years later, cheap again, just a shell with a story. The new owners never heard about Lucia or Clara or the mirror room, but their daughter, also named Clara, has started brushing her hair at midnight in front of the hallway mirror. She says her friend helps her. She says her friend lives in the glass, and she always smells like lavender. And when asked what her friend's name is, she says Lucia. But sometimes she forgets and calls her Clara too. The boy they buried, standing up the village of San Marcelo, was small, dusty, surrounded by forests and banana groves, with one school built in 1958, its wooden frame still standing despite the rain and rot. It had 3 classrooms, 1 office, and an old flagpole that lined slightly to the left, as if tired from holding the country's weight. The school was simple, the teachers were few, the children were loud, but happy until they started seeing him. He never enrolled, he never spoke, he never aged, just boy in a dirty uniform, always sitting in the back row of class 3. Some days he smiled, some days he cried. No one knew who he was. The teachers thought he belonged to someone in the village. The children didn't talk about him much, because when they did they couldn't sleep. Ms. Ramos was new. She had just moved from Bulacan, fresh from university, full of energy and dreams of making a difference in the provinces. She was assigned to class 3. The oldest students. She loved the children, despite the school's creaking floors, dim windows, and occasional leaks from the tin roof. One day, she took a photo of the class with her phone, everyone smiling in their uniforms, on the old steps of the building. Later that night, while reviewing the pictures, she noticed something strange. In the back left behind everyone else stood a boy. He was not part of the class. His eyes were dark, his face pale, his uniform soaked like he had been caught in a storm. But that day had been sunny. She zoomed in. His feet weren't touching the ground. She showed the principal, who went silent, then said nothing. Later that week, an old janitor approached her with shaking hands. He said the boy was real. Once his name was Elias. He was quiet, poor, lived with his Lola in a small hut behind the school. He was bullied, mocked, and blamed for every broken window, missing pencil, and unexplained cry during class, until one day they went too far. Some boys dared each other to lock him inside the old toolshed near the back field during a typhoon. He was never seen again. The door had blown open in the morning, the inside empty, the floor scratched, but he was gone. A search was done, then forgotten. They buried an empty coffin behind the school. But they didn't lay it flat, they buried it standing, because a local albulario said, if you bury a cursed child lying down, hell sleep and grow angry, but if he stands, hell watch and wait. He never blinked, he never forgave. The village began to change. At night the school echoed with soft tapping, like knuckles against wood, like fingernails inside walls. Children began to talk in their sleep, not in their voices, but in his asking why they locked him, in asking where his slippers were. One girl said she dreamed of holding his hand and walking into the trees, but when she woke up her hand was muddy. One boy tore out his notebook pages and wrote Elias again and again in charcoal until his fingers bled. Ms. Ramos began to see him standing outside her window, always at 3 a.m., always facing the school, not her, and always weeping. She couldn't take it anymore. She asked the barangay captain for permission to dig behind the school to find the grave. She found the wooden board with Elias' name still burned into the top. When they dug around it, the soil turned cold. Her hands shook as they brushed aside the dirt and revealed the coffin still upright, still sealed. She placed her palm against the wood and felt something pulse, not a heartbeat, but a memory. And for a moment she saw through his eyes rain, darkness, fear, and boys laughing as the door slammed, then silence. Then screaming. That night the coffin was brought to the chapel for reburial. They laid it flat this time with candles and prayers and white flowers. But during the Mass, a wind blew through the church strong enough to blow out every flame and slam the doors shut. One candle stayed lit near the coffin, and in that flame she saw his face, not angry, just tired. Then the candle went out and the coffin creaked. They opened it. Inside was not a skeleton. It was a boy, preserved skin, cold eyes, half-open mouth still wet with rain. And in his hand, a paper folded 1,000 times. When they opened it, it read, I am still waiting for someone to say sorry. The villagers gathered in silence around the opened coffin. No one knew what to do. No one dared close the lid again. The boy's face was so peaceful, but the paper in his hand felt like a scream. I am still waiting for someone. Say sorry. One of the old teachers came forward, eyes wet with guilt. He had taught Elias years ago, had ignored the signs, had dismissed his bruises, his silence. He knelt and whispered, I am sorry. And for a moment the air shifted, the candles flickered, but the boy's fingers did not let go of the paper. A breeze passed, and everyone heard a single word echo softly through the church, not you. Ms. Ramos did research, found the names of the boys who had last seen Elias alive, 4 in total, now men. One had become a police officer, one ran a bakery, one worked abroad, one had died in a car crash years ago. She contacted them one by one, asked if they remembered what they did. The first denied it and laughed, the next hung up and blocked her number, the third agreed to meet her, but never showed. The fourth she visited in the cemetery, and his grave had a fresh crack in the headstone each morning. Ms. Ramos returned to the classroom and erased Elias' name from the blackboard each night. It returned, sometimes small in the corner, sometimes huge across the whole board, sometimes written in red. She cleaned the walls until her hands blistered. But the chalk returned. Then came the handprints, small muddy prints across desks, windows, ceilings, sometimes inside the water dispensers, sometimes under her pillow. The children began to draw him without knowing, smiling with black eyes, holding a paper. Some even wrote letters. Dear Elias, I am sorry. They were mean. I hope you're not lonely. Sometimes he writes back, a boy was found sitting high mango tree by the school alone in the middle of the night, smiling. When asked how he got up there, he said, my friend lifted me. They asked who his friend was. He pointed behind them and said, he's behind you. They turned, no one there. But when they looked up again, the boy was gone. One day, every student in class 3 refused to enter the room. They said it was too cold, too quiet, too loud all at once. Said the desks had eyes. Said they saw Elias sitting at his desk waiting for roll call. Said if they didn't let him, he'd call someone out and they'd trade places. The school closed for 1 week. But the dreams continued. The children whispered in sleep. They spoke in voices, not theirs. They wrote names in their notebooks they had never learned. And always they dreamed of standing in a wooden box in the rain. Ms. Ramos stayed behind after school one Thursday to pack her things. She had made up her mind to leave. She couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't save the children if the town itself refused to remember. As she locked her drawer, she felt a breeze. The chalkboard was clean. She smiled, then turned. Elias stood in the doorway, soaked in water, his eyes wide, his mouth open like he had forgotten how to speak. She tried to run, but the door closed. He pointed to her desk. On it, a mirror, old, broken, gold-framed. She looked into it, saw herself as a student in class 3, saw Elias in the back, smiling, alone, then crying, then screaming, then vanishing, then returning. She whispered, I am sorry. This time he nodded and walked into the mirror and was gone. School is still open. Class 3 still exists, but the students never sit in the last seat of the last row. The teachers don't talk about why, and the janitor always keeps a candle lit at the back of the room. Sometimes new students say they saw a boy wave to them from the window. Sometimes a voice calls a name no one in class has. Sometimes papers appear on desks with drawings of trees and a tool shed. And once every year someone writes a letter and leaves it under the blackboard. Dear Elias, you are not I've forgotten. We remember now. We're sorry. Sleep if you can, but watch if you must.
If you enjoyed this terrifying story, let us know in the comments below. Hit that like button to help us bring more cursed tales and dark legends to life. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, but warn them first. And if you dare, subscribe to this channel, because here in Pinoy Phobia, the horror never ends. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next cursed story, spine-chilling folklore, or true paranormal encounter from the shadows of the Philippines. Remember, some stories are meant to be heard, but others are meant to be warnings. Thank you for watching, and remember, whatever happens, don't look back.